Hello, hope you're doing well. This is Dr. Flight. It is great to be reaching out to you on a topic called customer relationship marketing metrics. When we talk about customer relationship marketing, it's really a combination of processes that an organization will implement, rooted in the idea that we're going to gather a lot of information about customers, and use that information to create or identify what their very specific value needs are in the marketplace. Like, why are they buying our product and what do they need from a relationship perspective from us, and then producing a set of activities or marketing programming elements that meet their needs specifically. However, the whole process is rooted in information. And so this is like a database, big data database, AI algorithm, machine learning type of an initiative. And quite frankly, always has been, largely driven by the data that a company has. So when we look at the internal data that companies will use to start this process and to cycle through the CRM kind of cycle or programming, it starts with transaction data. Every time a transaction is recorded, digital footprint is left, and the details of that transaction are, of course, available. And just keep in mind, when companies have lots of transactions, there's obviously a lot of data that's produced from those transactions. So in our arsenal of data will be a whole category and set of data that results from our business activities, that are chronicled by transactions that are made. Okay. Additionally, other data that we use and have available to us indicates customer-related data. So very specifically, what are the customer details and what are the customers' kind of interactions with our firm? Maybe not necessarily transaction related, but how do they reach us? How do we reach them? How do they come in contact with us? Elements of participation and engagement. We can see like their comments if we scrape the socials and see what their comments are about us. Loyalty program participation, and so on and so forth. So customer contact details and information is gathered and something that we can look at. Additionally, simply demographic and descriptive data about our customers is available as well. So where they live, who they are, how old they are, their buying habits, those types of things. Again, not necessarily transactional data, not necessarily contact data, but data about the consumers. We often use this data initially to segment markets. So segmentation criteria data might be something that we would use quite a bit. And then finally, and this one is a little different, data that may be associated with consumers' responses to our marketing activities. So when we change our price, we expect the market to do different things. They'll either buy more or less of our product, or they might buy more of our competitor's product, or there's a million different things that they could do as a result of that marketing change, that change we made in the marketing program and the value proposition. So what happens when customers, experience a change? What if we put an ad in front of them or give them a coupon? Or what if we have a spokesperson, a celebrity spokesperson appear with our product? How do they react to that? Some customers will react positively and buy our product. Some customers, they'll just ignore it. Well, that's important for us to know. So the reaction of customers to our marketing efforts, and there could be a million different decisions we make, and the customers can react differently to every single one of those. Well, we should be able to capture that, and we should be able to use that information. Okay, so so this is some of the background. This is like the data that we use. Again, our data sets are huge and enormous, and this is an outcome of really big data, the big data era of the 2000s, really, and has emerged out of that. Now, as we move forward, much of what we want to think about doing will surround itself with evaluating the performance of our marketing program and identifying and evaluating the level and quality of our relationship with the customer. So how do we know if customers are having a good relationship with us? How do we measure relationship strength? And all of the kind of concepts wrapped in that relationship value to us. So one would be acquisition costs. On average, how much is spent to acquire a new customer? So here's the thing. If you have a really strong brand and good brand equity and good quality, and people think very strongly and positively about our brand, then acquisition costs are lower. Doesn't cost as much for a popular company to attract a customer as it does an unpopular company to attract a customer. Right? Conversion rates. When somebody hears about our products and our brand, when they become aware of it, how quickly do they purchase a product from us? So they go from a looker to a buyer. They're looking at our product, then they go buy our product. That's a conversion. So what is the rate of lookers who buy? What percentage of people who are aware of the product eventually buy the product? And how quickly does that happen? Okay. Retention and churn rates. Okay, so this is another metric. These are two metrics. One is the churn rate we'll use a lot. And those are the percentage of customers who leave from period to period, from one period to the next. So if I lose customers at a 10% rate, then my churn rate is 10%. Now, conversely, if you take the inverse of that, it means that our retention rate is 90%. 90% of our customers are coming back. Okay, so again, think of this, especially in the context of acquisition costs. If we're losing customers, we need to attract new ones, meaning we have to spend money on acquisition costs to bring new ones in. So that can be problematic. All right, so retention and churn rates. Okay, average order value. Average order value is one where we look to see how much customers are spending in their spend. Obviously, the more the spend, the better for us. Recovery rates. All right, recovery rate is when we have a service failure or we have a failure in the minds of the consumer, and we're able to correct our mistake and make the customer happy. So we want to bring back a customer. Upon a failure, we want to get the customer to come back to us. Can we do that? And at what rate do we do that at? Okay. Social communications. This is something that we'll certainly monitor and evaluate. Social communications deal with the buzz, and we sometimes call it sentiment or buzz, that's associated with having our product talked about in the digital world, on social media and places like that, and so on and so forth. Right? Okay. Same customer sales rate. So this is very similar to the average customer spend, right? What's the average amount the customer spends over a specific period of time? So in one case, it's a customer who comes into the shop and makes a purchase. What's that purchase amount? This, on the other hand, is the amount of money spent over a period of time. so over a year or over months. So it's a little bit of a different thing. When you make a single purchase and fill up your shopping cart, you might spend $150 that one time, but over the next year, I might go shopping 10 times. And so I might spend $1,500 as a result of that. So those are two separate things, but they're very closely related. Okay, a couple more here. Loyalty. Okay, clearly loyalty and satisfaction kind of go together, but loyalty is it's like that advocacy concept where it's a deeper relational tool. Like when you have a deeper relationship with a customer, they're more loyal. It's not satisfaction. When you treat the customer right, they might be satisfied, but they may also go to other companies. They might not be loyal to you. They might be happy, but not loyal. And there's a difference between the two. So loyalty clearly is a big metric. And you improve in loyalty, you improve in profitability quite a bit. Okay, Net Promoter Score, NPS. We're going to talk in depth about Net Promoter Score because it's a key metric that many companies use, and it's very easy to calculate. So we're going to walk through how you capture Net Promoter Score. And then Customer Lifetime Value, CLV. That'll be the last thing that we look at. And again, we're going to look at an example for both of these because there are things you should be able to calculate, and there's things that you should use. Many companies use an NPS and CLV together to indicate their relationship and kind of the impact their brand has with customers. Okay, so Net Promoter Score. Okay, NPS. The Net Promoter Score is a single item question that we ask on a survey. And we say on a scale of 0 to 10, we say how willing are you to recommend XYZ, whatever the brand is, to a friend or family member or business associate or something like that. Okay, so it's a single item. We ask this on a scale on a survey, and so. Again, it should say there 0 to 10 Net Promoter Score is based on 0 to 10. We're 0 through 6. If somebody checks those boxes, those are called detractors. If you check 7 and 8, that person's called a passive. And if you check 9 or 10, you are a promoter. So how the customers check those boxes puts them in one of three categories, either a detractor, a passive, or a promoter. And to use Net Promoter Score, what we do is we take the percentage of detractors, so those people who checked 0 through 6, and we subtract them from the percentage of promoters, those who checked 9 and 10. So take the percentage of the promoters minus the percentage of detractors, and then the net of those, the difference between those, that's where you get the net for Net Promoter, is the Net Promoter Score, the NPS. That's how you do it. Okay, so it's as simple as that. It's one item on a survey, and then it's just identifying the detractors, the promoters, and taking the difference of those two groups. So here's an example. On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being not willing at all, and 10 being extremely willing, how willing are you to recommend Big Bob's Big and Tall Shirt Shop, to a friend or an associate? Okay, and you might add, the language may change a little bit there, a friend or family member or something like that. That might be something you say. So we go out, we collect some data, we have a bunch of people respond to this survey question. 194 checked the 10 box. 362 checked the 9 box. So those two groups represent our promoters. And you can see on the scale, on the distribution here, how people checked the boxes on that scaled question. Okay, so what we do is we take our total sum of respondents, and we take our promoters. 556 checked 9 or 10, so that would be 46% of the respondents. The detractors are those who checked the boxes 0 through 6. That's 302, and they represent 25% of the respondents. So now to get the Net Promoter Score, the NPS is the 46.29 minus 25.15. So our NPS is 21.14, and that is a percentage, right? Because this is a percent. Now, you might just call it 21. And our goal, obviously, would be to grow that. We grow that by getting rid of detractors and increasing promoters, okay? So that's that's the Net Promoter Score. That's all it is. But it's very important, and many companies use it. So be aware of it and know how it works and what it is. And so when you hear Net Promoter Score, you'll know kind of what this metric is and how to calculate it. Okay. The second thing that we'll look at here in depth is something called customer lifetime value, and it provides a forecast of margins or future purchases discounted back to the present day. So in this context, what we think of is the customer as an asset who's going to provide us revenue into the future. And if they do that in a predictable way, then we can treat them like an asset and say, well, look, our future revenue from this investment, this asset that we have, will be the CLV. It'll be customer lifetime value. Okay, so the process provides an estimate of profitability for a customer during the life of their relationship with you. CLV is a powerful tool. It's something, again, that is used a lot in the world today to understand the value of the relationship you have with a customer. And obviously, the longer you keep a customer and the more they spend with you, the better. So we look at the CLV calculation. What we're going to look at is gross contribution, which, if you're familiar with what a contribution margin is, it's the money you bring in, your sales revenue, minus the variable costs that you incur to satisfy that sale. So we take that contribution margin, we can call it gross contribution as it's indicated here. Okay, so if the customer spends more with you, then your gross contribution is going to be higher, typically, right? So that's a goal. So remember those metrics where we talked about how much the customer's spending with you, the average amount that they spend. The higher that is, the more customer lifetime value we're going to have. Okay, two other parameters here, or variables that are in the model. One is a discount rate, a yearly discount rate, to account for cost of capital or costs of money over time. And then R would be a yearly retention rate. Remember that retention rate versus the churn rate. Again, retention rate is how many percentage of customers who come back. Now, this model is a simplified model. It doesn't take into nuances like changes in discount rate or changes in the retention rate. Okay, so cost of capital, you could use like rate of inflation, or your borrowing rate, like rate to borrow money might be something that you use for this rate. Okay, so that's a decision that you would want to make, but you can make. Okay, so here's an example. Suppose you run a lawn care company. Typically during a year, and please pause this if you want. Typically during a year, you have a customer who comes in, and that customer spends about $500 a year with you. Now, to service that customer, in other words, to provide labor and materials to warrant the $500 you're receiving, it's going to cost you $90. So that's a variable cost. It's a variable cost that we incur direct towards that $500 we received. Okay. To acquire the customer, so an acquisition cost is thrown in here, it's $30, and the cost to retain them. So in other words, sometimes you have to, spend money to keep customers. It's $10 a year. So it's not huge, but it's there. Okay, because you do a good job, though, the retention rate is going to be 90%. Your churn rate's 10%, so your retention rate's 90%. And finally, we're going to use a cost of capital as simply say, well, we're going to say inflation is pegged at 3%, so that's what we're going to kind of use. Okay, so putting us all together, there's a lot of information there, but we're going to take this $500 as our revenue, and then we're going to take out of that $500 the 90 and the 10, because those are things that we pay every year, kind of like variable costs, to satisfy this account. Okay, and we're going to use that as our gross contribution. So setting up the equation or setting up the work here, we have our gross contribution, $500, or $500 minus 100, which will ultimately be $400, and then that's multiplied by the rest of that formula, 1 plus the discount rate, divided by 1 plus the discount rate minus the retention rate, which is 0.9. So again, pause this as you need to. Look at the math, examine what's happening here, make sure you can track through and you understand the different steps. So it's just a little bit of algebra that gets us down to the bottom, which says $3,169 is the customer lifetime value. Now, what we're going to do is go ahead and subtract out $30. And this will be okay to do here. I mean, it's not the end of the world. $30 is not a lot, but it is a cost. If you have 1,000 customers, the $30 adds up quickly. If it's what you acquired over the last year, if you have hundreds of thousands of customers and you're spending $30 to acquire each one, it's obviously something you want to include, right? So we'll subtract that out. Gives us a net CLV of $3,139. So this is the value this customer has to us if they continue to spend this type of money and the costs stay the same and our retention rate stays the same, and so on and so forth. Okay, so in a snapshot of time today, for me to go out and get this customer, the value they're going to bring to us is, $3,100. It cost me $30 to acquire them, but $3,100 over this time period, that's a good customer, maybe, right? Now, again, you can deviate, you can change the numbers. So if they don't spend $500, if they spend less, if the cost of capital goes up and changes, if our retention rate changes. So in other words, maybe we provide less service and our retention rate goes down. We want to consider what would happen to that as well. Okay, so CLV, very, very powerful. Again, it's not computationally really challenging to kind of do this, but the application and the strategy that you can derive from this one metric is actually enormous. It's something that everybody should be able to handle and be able to compute for their company. All right. Again, these are metrics. This whole thing has been metrics and discussion about how we measure the effects of CRM. I hope you had fun listening. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.